It is not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. Hello and welcome to Self-Talk. I'm Rachel Astarte. Thank you for being here. One of the curious things about inner work is that we become super goal-oriented. We get so focused on where we think we should be that we lose sight of how far we've come. Maybe you've noticed that. You learn a new practice, take Nonjudgment, for example, and you practice it a few times and almost immediately begin wondering why you haven't mastered it yet. Never mind that non-judgment is a lifelong practice, but all that aside, you might even end up judging yourself for not becoming less judgmental. Our underdeveloped ego is really wonderfully creative in that way. This applies to whatever the tool is, whether it's bringing your fears closer, creating and maintaining loving boundaries, or not identifying with your thoughts. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, I should be farther along in my inner work by now, I hope that today's topic will ease your mind. So let's talk about growth, since that is the goal. First, it's really important to note that personal growth is often so gradual that it feels ordinary while it's happening. That means that the big revelation you're looking for doesn't seem to appear, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. One day you notice that you recovered from disappointment more quickly. You paused before reacting. You spoke more kindly to yourself. You recognized a fear before it quietly took over. You enforced a boundary without apologizing. However sporadic they are, these moments matter. They're evidence that something inside you is changing. They show that the work is becoming part of who you are, which is the point. Remember that notion of an ideal self is a false notion. It's not someone out there in the future that you're striving to become. You are already exactly where you need to be, even if you're in the process of making changes. So with that in mind, how does change happen? There are 3 phases of growth, and as we go through them, notice, if you will, how these phases dovetail so nicely with the 3 pillars of the foundation of self: non-judgment, awareness, and gentleness. The first phase is conscious understanding. First, you become aware that something is out of alignment, a pattern or behavior that doesn't serve you well. So, for example, for our purposes today, let's take having the Sunday Scaries. Idiopathic anxiety, as in anxiety that has no nameable source. It's just a feeling. I'm feeling anxiety before I start work tomorrow. So that's the first phase of change, is understanding. Intellectually, you get it. Something is out of alignment. And maybe you remember that the first tool you can use is non-judgment. Maybe you don't remember that, but at least you're aware that something is off. Now, even that awareness should be celebrated as a win, because awareness is itself growth. Okay, so the first thing we have is conscious intellectual understanding that something is wrong, and perhaps, and we'll talk about this in a minute, perhaps even the awareness of a tool that you can use. All right. Phase 2 is the experience or the practice of using a tool. The phase of experience and practice actually has 2 elements. One is what we just talked about, remembering to practice the tool. And then the second element is actually practicing it. So let's talk for a second about remembering to use the tool. Sometimes we get so stuck in the awareness, we don't know where to go from there. I can't tell you how many students I have who report the same pattern of dysfunctional behavior, and when I ask them, okay, now that you have some distance from it, what would help you? And they say, oh, well, it would have been better if I didn't blame myself for X, whatever the thing is. Why didn't I remember that? Likewise, my therapy patients ask me if I ever get tired of repeating the same things over and over again in our sessions. Well, of course I don't. Repetition is how we learn. When my son was a toddler, I'd watch educational programs with him. And I remember getting so frustrated that the shows that we would watch repeated the same episodes over and over again. I was like, didn't we just watch this yesterday? And then I realized that's how children best learn their letters and numbers and sharing and so on. Okay, so the first phase of the experience and practice is remembering in the first place to use the tool. The second phase is actually practicing the tool. So let's go back to the Sunday Scaries. You've become aware that you have this nebulous anxiety about going to work tomorrow. And then you remember, hey, I can use that tool of non-judgment. So you say to yourself, you know what, self? Anxiety is just a feeling. It's not who I am. It's okay. It's not going to serve me to judge myself for feeling anxiety. So I will just witness it. Practicing something new can happen gracefully, but sometimes it feels awkward or it even hurts. So if you're practicing this tool of non-judgment, it can feel really strange to be forgiving yourself for something like being anxious. It's kind of like working a new muscle. When we work out, we get sore. And what is the best remedy for that? Giving up and never exercising that muscle group again? Obviously not. We go back and we keep working it until it gets stronger. And it's the same with practicing a new tool. This is where that pillar of gentleness comes in. You give yourself grace as you navigate new terrain. So fair warning, just so that you are aware, the underdeveloped ego will push back. We've talked about this before. It wants homeostasis. It wants to be in charge, even if your status quo is dysfunctional, right? It's afraid that it won't be needed anymore, so it's going to give you that grasp hold, saying you need me to control what's going on. So just be gentle with yourself if and when that happens. Keep your eyes on the goal, in this case, releasing the Sunday Scaries, and give yourself compassion and encouragement. It's the gentleness part. Or at the very least, put your head down and move through the awkward phase, knowing that it will pass. Just keep doing the work. And little by little, your practice becomes lived experience. And that brings us to phase 3, which is integration. That's when you enter that third phase, when the practice becomes lived experience. One day, you realize you didn't have to remember the practice. The practice remembered you. What happened is your nervous system recognized, after use and overuse, recognized that alignment. So your breath deepens naturally. Your awareness arrives before your reactions do. And the tools stop feeling like techniques and just begin to feel like part of who you are. This thing happened, the Sunday Scaries. Hey man, that's okay. It's just a nervous system reaction to an old pattern, and I can move on and focus on something else. I'll take a breath, remind myself that all is well, and that this is all a thought, like a cloud moving in the sky. I can let it go. This isn't really who I am anyway. Okay? So those are the 3 phases: conscious understanding, experience and practice, and integration. Think of a baby bird incubating in its shell. From the outside, the egg appears silent and unmoving. But internally, some sense is awakening in the chick. It has awareness that this place is cramped, and now it's time to start wriggling around and break out of the shell. The baby bird doesn't judge itself for the need to change or even for the timing of the change. Like, why didn't I notice how cramped I was before? It simply moves and pecks and cracks the shell. If you've ever watched a baby bird hatching, you know it seems to take forever. But the chick isn't fazed. It isn't pressured. It is simply doing what it needs to do. Now, think of what a baby bird looks like after it's free from its shell. Not pretty, right? Its feathers, such as they are matted and wet. It's blind and flailing about even in its exhaustion. That bird needs gentleness as it gets stronger. And so do you. You are the bird. Don't judge. Accept the growth on your terms, on your timeline. Another beautiful surprise is that as you make changes in your life, your awareness expands. You begin seeing more patterns, more assumptions, more places where fear has quietly been making decisions. A room doesn't become dusty just because you turned on the light. The light simply allows you to see what has always been there. But know that all this awareness shouldn't lead to the conclusion that you're more messed up than you thought. That's judgment anyway. It's evidence that you are evolving. You're farther along the path. You've come so far, in fact, that these issues feel safe enough to surface for your gentle ministrations. Over the coming weeks, as you become aware of areas you'd like to shift and change in your life, don't judge. Celebrate your growth no matter where you are on your path. And as always, be gentle with yourself. I'm off for my birthday month of August. I'll be back with you in September. Hi, this is Rachel Astarte from the Self-Talk Podcast. I'd love for you to send me your emails with questions or stories about yourself. What are you looking for? What are your questions? What are you grappling with in your own personal life that has to do with your identity, with yourself, with your very existence? These are the things that we're going to talk about during the podcast. And go ahead. It's all right. Get deep. I can handle it. So send them to Rachel@selftalkpodcast.com. And I'll see you on the next episode.